podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Thanks for joining me. Today, I wanted to talk about the concept of forever syndrome. I had never heard that in all my 9 years. Maybe I had heard it, but it never registered for me. Um, the term forever syndrome. And then the idea of thinking versus self-obsession. So these were two topics that came up this morning, and for me, I feel like they really tie together. We had some newcomers in our meetings, so whenever that happens, we talk a lot about step one. And somebody mentioned, I think the reading said something about forever syndrome, and I was like, what is that? I mean, it should be self-explanatory for me because I experienced it. But I wanted to get a definition. So I asked Chatty McChatterton, uh, AKA Chatty, ChatGPT. I asked what it was, and I was like, yeah, that was totally me. I experienced forever syndrome. The idea of like when you first stop drinking, that this is the way my life has to be for the rest of my life. I can't do it. That's what happened for me the first time I got serious. So I thought and went to detox and got sober. What put me back out and start drinking again was forever syndrome. I thought I'm never gonna stop not drink for the rest of my life. I'm not gonna do that. So I might as well start now. That was my mindset. And when I took my first San Francisco business trip sober, that forever syndrome snuck in again. And alongside the nobody will know, nobody's going to know, nobody's going to know until I recognized what was happening. And I thought, look, if I'm going to do this, then right this moment is where the rubber meets the road, and I need to make a decision. Am I all in, or am I going to drink when I think nobody's going to know about it? And I thought, I'm going to know about it. My higher power, if I'm going to be all in on this higher power thing, my higher power is going to know about it. And that kept me from drinking that day. And it has kept me from drinking ever since. So that thinking, that obsession, that was the idea that came up in the first meeting this morning. And I never came across that concept either, where what my brain was doing, like that, what I always call the hamster on the hamster wheel, that thinking is not actually there to process any information. I'm not solving anything. I'm not processing anything. I'm in a loop. My brain is in a loop. And it felt impossible when I was drinking to escape from that loop. And today, what we call emotional sobriety is what helps me escape from that loop. So the emotional weight of thinking I'm never going to drink again was absolutely overwhelming. And that is something that kept me drinking for many years after the first time I went to a sobriety meeting, to Alcoholics Anonymous. So forever syndrome is really like overthinking the lifetime I have ahead of me and what is that going to be like. And to be honest, I was incapable of correctly envisioning what my life would be like without alcohol when I first stopped drinking, because I was wrong. There is no way, and I was overthinking it, I was in a loop. I was trying to resolve how I was going to be able to live my life happy without a drink, and it did not compute. I just kept thinking that I was going to live forever with the same emotional pain and spiritual deficit that I had when I first stopped drinking. I was going to have to live that way for the rest of my life, and I wasn't going to be able to self-medicate. So it was impossible for me to understand that it is possible, that I was going to be able to do it because I wasn't always going to feel that way. And that's where the steps come in. That's where connection with the fellowship comes in. That's where thinking of the moment I'm in rather than the lifetime ahead comes in. So, sobriety, getting into sobriety removed the drink, but the emotional sobriety, which is the steps, learning how to quiet the self-obsession, the noise, and actually leave room for thinking, real thinking. Um, I didn't know I wasn't doing that. I didn't know I wasn't doing real thinking, but instead I was just using up energy. I was burning, quite literally burning energy for no reason with my anxiety and my depression. And the only real solution that I found was drinking. I was self-medicating for that. So when I removed the drink, the the noise got louder. That's what it felt like. But honestly, when I think back, like in retrospect, I don't think it got louder in my head. I think I started to open my mouth and talk about it. So it started coming to the surface. And that was when real recovery began. When that when that obsessive thinking stopped being the only voice I heard. Um, I didn't stop thinking ever, right? I didn't, don't, what is it? Don't think, don't drink or some, I don't know. There's all kinds of these sayings. But I didn't stop thinking. I started learning how to massage my thinking. It's like I just went to the physical therapist today, and she's like teaching my muscles to respond differently and or in some cases respond. And that really aligns with my experience in sobriety because in many cases, I was not responding at all to life. And my sobriety program, the 12 steps, my sponsors that I've had over the years, and the fellowship teach me how to respond in a healthy way. Teach me that I don't have to just react to things, that the world isn't going to leave me behind if I take a healthy amount of time to think about how I want to respond to life, people, places, and things. So I'm not thinking. I'm not feeding the loop. It's like I'm opening the door to the hamster cage and letting the hamster out so that I can think more clearly. It's not clanging around in there. One of the things the reading said this morning is when I allow myself to quiet down, allow my thinker to quiet down through the steps, I can start hearing the world a little better. I could sit in these meditation meetings on Fridays and I couldn't hear anything but the noise inside my head, the obsessiveness, the fear, the anxiety, like all of that stuff that was ricocheting back and forth in my head, the hamster wheel going around, that was all I could hear. But I kept being reminded because I was forcing myself to sit in this room for 10 minutes with all of these strangers in the meeting. We'd turn off the lights and we'd just sit there in silence. And doing that every Friday forced me to turn it off. Like, turn off stop listening to the hamster wheel, like come back to my body, to where I say that all the time. Bring my mind to where my feet are, because so often my mind is somewhere completely different. It's still all the time. My mind is not in my body most of the time. It is just out there thinking of the world, everything else, and I can't even hear the world because I'm not right where I'm standing. My mind isn't where my feet are. And so I'm obsessing about all of the stuff that's going on between my ears instead of being able to hear the traffic outside. Like that's the first thing I noticed in this meditation meeting that I used to go to. There was a point where I started to hear the traffic outside of the building. And I was fascinated by the fact that I never noticed it before. And this building where I would go to it's called Club 12 in Leesburg, where I would go to these meetings, is right at a major area in town in Leesburg, and there's a big highway like right near it. I couldn't even hear it. But once I was able to start practicing quieting down, I started to be able to hear what was going on outside. And that is a perfect representation of how my drinking and my obsessive thinking was leaving me disconnected from the world around me. So alcohol was just magnifying that noise inside my head. Um, but even taking away the alcohol did not just stop that loop, didn't stop the hamster. It was being introduced to the steps. I've said it like, right, 6 times already in this episode. Being introduced to the steps and being willing to talk about them, to open up my mouth and talk about what was going on between my ears. You know, it seems like such a simple solution, but I think so many of us keep our mouths shut and don't talk about the stuff that's going on between our ears. And now I've gotten to this point where I am passionate about sharing even the craziest of notions that I have in my head, because I know I'm not alone. I know that I'm not unique. So the noise in my head was muting the world around me. And I couldn't hear the example. I couldn't hear the traffic outside. Well, I also couldn't hear what people were saying to me. I couldn't truly sit in a conversation with somebody and see and hear what was going on outside of what they were saying. And by that, it's like they're truly read their body language and not assume what I think they're thinking outside of what they're saying. Um, Truly see the beauty in, like, now I'll sit and, like, my mom and my sister are coming to visit me today. And as we're talking, I have what's in my mind, in the back of my mind, is how much I love them and how lucky I am to have been born into this family where we love each other and we don't have um any issues. I mean, of course we have we have issues. They're going to be laughing when they hear this, but um like we really truly have such a close relationship in my family. And I couldn't notice that when I was drinking. The more that I thought, the less connected I was to even my family. So, um, outside of that, this coming back to the forever syndrome, when I got sober, I still had some of that obsessiveness. Um, and what the program teaches me, and we hear it all the time, is one day at a time. So letting go of the I have to do this for the rest of my life thing. And just to tie in my stroke recovery, I have had forever syndrome post stroke. And what that feels like for those of you who are in recovery from a chronic illness is it's the same. It's like I was trapped in this self-obsessed idea that this is what my life is going to be like forever. I'm never going to be able to name it. I'm never going to be able to run again. I'm never going to be able to watch TV again. I even said that yesterday in my support group. I said, I most likely I'll never be able to watch TV. And that might be true. But when I'm thinking about what I'm never going to be able to do, I'm not doing anything positive for myself today. What can I think about today? And I'm saying think about, not self-obsess about. What can I think about that's going to add value to the moment that I'm in right now? So thinking about how can I surface joy in my life today, in this moment, not what can I do for myself so that when I'm 80, I'm happy. I need to look at the moment that I'm in right now. And as I'm reminded of that with my sobriety program, I have really been able to capture so much beauty in the moments that I'm in that I don't believe that I would have otherwise. So, especially with that book that I read that I've been talking a lot about, the Signs book, Signs, the Secret Language of the Universe. Now I just notice so much more. Um, I can't tell you how many birds I notice now. I always was hearing them, but now I notice birds all the time, especially birds that fly in twos. I see all the time. Even though I asked my grandparents to send me two bluebirds, I haven't seen that, but I see two birds all the time. But aside from that, I just notice, like yesterday I was walking Autumn and I was walking by a tree line, and it was all shaded in there, like it was all shadows inside the where the trees were, and the sun was on the other side of the trees, so it was just a little bit of flicker of sun coming all the way through and hitting me. But I looked at this one spot inside all of that treescape, we'll call it, and there was one spot that was just lit up, bright as could be, but it was just a spot. And for some reason, it was beautiful to me. It spoke to me in ways that if I had all that noise between my ears, I wouldn't have been able to like really, as I walk by, appreciate what created that light. I mean, it's so kind of simple, and I probably sound silly talking about it, but it's like I'm thinking about what nature is doing around me while I'm walking. And quite often I will walk and And all I can think about is what I'm doing, within me, not what the world's doing around me, but what I am doing within me. That is most likely not helping me. How am I beating myself up? How am I not good enough? How do I not measure up and all of that stuff? I mean, that's a default for me, and it's taken years for me to learn to even notice that I'm doing that to myself. But with practice, I've been able to quiet down the noise that's in my head and just notice. And life is so much more fulfilling in the moment that I'm in rather than always chasing the moments that are ahead of me. Um, so all of this started with admitting that I was powerless. And what I was reminded of this morning is admitting that I'm powerless isn't giving up. It is stepping aside. Um, Emotional sobriety gets stronger when I admit that I don't have the strength within me. And that's kind of strange to think about, but that's why we seek a power greater than ourselves, because emotional sobriety, if I am only ever looking inward, which is what all that noise is, if I'm only ever looking inward, then I don't I only have enough strength that can be found within me. How much stronger when you're doing a plane pull? I don't know why that's the first thing that's coming to mind, but for those of you who have done a plane pull before, how much stronger are you as a team pulling that plane than just one of you holding the rope and trying to pull? I mean, you're like nothing. If you're holding onto that rope, you can do nothing. But once you have a team of people come in and start pulling, you can move an entire plane. And that's what I require for emotional sobriety. I require an entire team of people, Team Rachel. Um, and when I'm able to invite and accept all of those people into my space, my mental space, then I am enormously connected to the world. Um, Sometimes the noise in my head has to be interrupted in ways like picking up the phone and calling somebody. Sometimes the noise, I can't turn it off. And I require action in order to turn it off. So that can look like picking up the phone and to calling my sponsor, going to a meeting, calling my mom or dad, calling my brother or sister, um, talking to my husband, going to a support group. It can look like picking up the phone and calling my psychiatrist. It can look like any one of those things. But the goal is to notice the noise and interrupt it somehow. Because as much as I'm experiencing the noise, I am absolutely disconnected from the moment that I'm in. That's just me. So today, the world is not silent. When the reading said this morning, the world is silent when I have all that noise in my head. But when I can finally quiet that down, I can hear the wind. I can hear the slightest of noises around me. And that means I'm connected. I'm listening. I'm open. I go from a brain loop to letting the hamster out of the cage and listening. And the work is ongoing, but it's no longer unrealistic. Like I started out saying, I could not realistically in early sobriety think about what life was going to be like, what my forever life was going to be like without drinking because I didn't have the tools yet. I didn't have the tools to strengthen my emotional sobriety. So, what I was thinking that made me go out and drink again was not reality. So, freedom has has come from interrupting myself. And I should be good at that. I interrupt people all the time, and I'm trying to be better at that. But I should be good at interrupting myself, but it's hard. It's still hard some days. But I think this is a good reminder of just of noticing, of noticing that the hamster has started running again, and learning how to, if I need help letting the hamster out, I can call somebody. And it's as easy as that sometimes. Sometimes it takes a lot of different tools that all together finally get me back on track. And I have definitely dealt with that over the past couple years. With all my fear and anxiety and what ifs from having my stroke and entering into a life of disability. Um, Trying to look at my life and picture what it's going to be like. Well, I'm missing out on now if I'm always trying to look at what my life is going to be like later. Like, what about now? And things are going pretty good. Honestly, they're going pretty good. So I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep doing the work and keep managing that hamster. I feel like you longtime listeners, I did name the hamster at one point, but I don't remember what I named the hamster. So anyway, it's time for me to get ready for my mom and my sister's visit. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.